Okay, so moving on. This one's probably more in your wheelhouse. Nintendo has released the full Metroid Prime game called Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I just watched the trailer. It looks really good. I'm not sure if it might still be available on the Nintendo Switch 1, but I know it's released on Nintendo Switch 2. And Leo, were you big into Metroid growing up?
I had a couple brushes with it, but the series as a whole never quite clicked. I mostly remember half a playthrough one of the Metroid Prime games on the GameCube and one of the 3DS that I believe was the Bounty Hunters spinoff, but I'm not entirely sure. Part of the problem was for most of my childhood, I did not realize Metroid existed because early in the gaming sphere, the advertising was weak where I lived. So despite starting on the Nintendo and Metroid also starting on the Nintendo, well, I just never heard of it until the GameCube days somehow.
Yeah, I was the same way. I didn't even know who Samus was until I played like Super Smash Bros. And she was in that.
That
And of
was my
course, when
introduction
my
to her as
brother
well.
had the NES, he never had the Metroid game, the first one, or never saw the Game Boy ones, or the Game Boy one was pretty old by the time I got a Game Boy Color. I didn't grow up with a Super Nintendo, but I didn't play a Metroid game until Fusion and Prime came out. I enjoyed those two.
All the mention of consoles reminds me of a prior point. I can confirm that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is on both versions of the Nintendo Switch, and that surprisingly there's next to no graphical improvement for playing it on the Switch 2, which I recall raising some eyebrows and ruffling some feathers.
I think the newest Metroid game I have is Metroid Shred for Nintendo Switch 1, which I still haven't gotten around to playing, but that looked pretty good. So I always thought Metroid Prime was a good 3D edition of Metroid. It basically plays the same as a 2D game, just from a 3D first person perspective. Though I'm not sure why they chose to make the 3D Metroid game first person shooters, but it worked in their favor. I only really played the first two Metroid Prime games, so the third one was on Wii, and I never had a Wii, so I couldn't play that.
Hmm. I cannot remember which one I had played, only that it was on the GameCube. And I agree that going to first person was an odd choice. I presume to emphasize a shift towards more of a shooter than the classic Metroidvania, which is interesting that it evolved into 3D in a completely different direction than Castlevania did.
Yeah, I also really enjoy Metroid Zero Mission, which is my preferred way to play the original game because when I played the original game on this channel, I just thought it was really dated. Like after you play Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission, it's very hard to go back to the original game because it's very much of a regression in the gameplay mechanic when you get used to those three games.
Well, that is what naturally happens when you go backwards on console generations. Even if the prior ones were certainly functional, good for their time, and often brutal in their simplicity, it kind of shows the difference between the technology levels.
Yeah, about the only Metro game I ever beat was Zero Mission. And I couldn't tell you how, because when I played the game years ago, I couldn't get anywhere in it. But,
I cannot recall actually completing a Metroid game.
yeah, I got pretty far in Fusion and Super Metroid, but never beat those, and I couldn't get anywhere in the first two, and I only get to like the second area, Metroid Prime, and that's about it.
Susan may have made a bit of an awkward choice including that in the podcast. Oh well.